It's already been 1 year since Dawntrail's release, and it's been quite a ride so far. But I'd like to sit down and reflect back on my time thus far. However, before we get started, I want to get some quick disclaimers out of the way. So, firstly, this video will contain spoilers, so if you haven't completed Dawntrail yet, skedaddle, please. Secondly, if you hate Dawntrail and or Wooklamot, this is not going to be a safe space for you. Feel free to click off of the video. I won't be glazing her, as the kids say. That video might come in the future. Nor will I be addressing people's critique. I may mention a few things, but we love Wooklamot over here, okay? So see ya if that's not the case for you. Alright, with that out of the way, hi, hey, hello. To the world, I'm Aurora, but my friends call me Muse. Whichever you decide to call me, I leave it up to you to choose. And today, I want to yap about my experiences with Dawntrail. Honestly, I've been having a blast so far. For a little background, I've been playing the game for around 5 years now, coming in pre-World of Warcraft Exodus. I know little to nothing about that game, but I figured that would be a good timestamp in terms of the Final Fantasy XIV timeline. This has been my second expansion that I played on launch, with Endwalker being the first. I feel like it's still too soon for me to decide where to place Dawntrail on my tier list as of yet, but it's been pretty great for me so far, honestly. Endwalker is still my overall favorite expansion, but I decided to take a bit of a different approach with Dawntrail. With Endwalker, I breezed through the game pretty quickly. I believe in like maybe a week or so, starting from early access. However, with Dawntrail, I really wanted to take my time, soak in the sights, and enjoy things as they came. I mean, Yoshi P kept saying this was going to be a vacation, so yeah, I'm going to treat it as such. This time around, it took me around like 12 days to complete it. A few of my friends wanted me to pick up the pace since they ended up passing me in the MSQ at some point, but I decided to just do me. And honestly, I'm really glad that I did. I created multiple glams to fit each arc of the story, starting with my Traveler's glam that I wore for most of the Rite of Succession arc, then my future street attire glam that I wore while we were in Solution 9 and Heritage Found, and finally my Gilded Warrior outfit that I made inspired by Old Alexandria, combining the gold and purple themes that were present throughout the second arc. This really immersed me even more into the world of Dawntrail, and I will absolutely be doing this for the next expansion. Moving along, let's get into what I loved about this expansion. The environments are breathtaking. Like, the graphical update was working overtime with this one. I can't count how many times I stopped to just take in the scenery. I've done this for every expansion, of course, but the grandeur was just on another level this time around. Unfortunately though, I did have a few moments of cutscene stuttering, which I was a little disappointed by since I play on PlayStation 5, but it wasn't anything like game breaking. Hopefully they have addressed that by now. The story, for the most part, was pretty good. I do have some gripes that I will get into later, but there was never anything that drove me to turning off the game. I really enjoyed the first half with the Rite of Succession. I saw a lot of people say it was boring, but I personally didn't mind the slower pace. I also enjoyed A Realm Reborn, fetch quests and all, so hey, I was always fated to be an outlier. Seeing Wooklamot find her own resolve that helped her continue forward into the second act was really nice. And speaking of, the second act was quite a ride. I knew the vacation Yoshi P promised us wouldn't last forever, but boy did I not expect it to take that turn. Solution 9 is jaw-dropping, and it's been really cool to see them go ham on the sci-fi fantasy aspect, even though it's been in the veins of Final Fantasy XIV since the beginning. There's so many ethical conversations that this expansion brings up as well, like with the endless and the soul cells and like memories being manipulated, and I honestly really appreciate the food for thought. It's hitting a little too on the nose in the current climate of AI being forced on us more and more every day, but that's a conversation for a different day. The entire arc of the last zone with shutting down each terminal made me extremely uncomfortable in the best way possible. It really made me question if we were doing the right thing, and the fact that the whole area now is like a depressing husk really drove home what we had done, forever being reminded of what was let go, and to stand firm in the decision that we had made. I really appreciated that form of environmental storytelling. It's kind of funny how Yoshi P said that they wanted to tell a more lighthearted story, but it ended up being similar to Endwalker in terms of navigating grief and the struggles that come with it. The music is incredible. There's never any surprises in that department, for me personally, but the songs we received for Dawntrail really blew me away. The theme for the second trial, the theme for the Skydeep Cenote dungeon, the Solution 9 theme, the overworld battle theme, and the Zone 5 night theme were all personal highlights for me. Especially the last one, oh my gosh, the night themes are always great, but this was the first time where whenever I teleported into this zone, I was praying that it was nighttime so I could hear the theme. It's just too good. I even like Smile, which a lot of people don't seem to care for. I will admit I was a little taken aback by the beginning of the song on first listen and how it was utilized in that train cutscene, but I still enjoyed it overall. I think it's such a moving song, especially because life hasn't been the greatest for me in a while, but the lyrics, just imagine what's around the bend, pops in my head, and I can't help but smile. I saw via the credits that Lynn, the vocalist present on many of the Persona 5 themes, is credited with background vocals for this song, and I was kind of stuck wondering for a bit how the song would have sounded with her as the lead vocalist. No disrespect to the actual lead though, I think she still did a great job. I think it's just a bit more theatrical than people are used to, I suppose. But a side note, so can please bring Lynn back for a song? That would actually be great. Thank you. Zone 6's theme also stood out to me, but in a different sort of way. My friend asked in our spoiler chat around that time how I felt about the theme for the last zone, and it was hard for me to say at first. I eventually was able to find my words after finishing the story. Quote, "The music in the last zone is very nice. It evoked a sort of nostalgic, bittersweet feeling in me, and my interpretation of it changed the further we went into the area. At first, it represented like this fantastical dream that you were in complete awe of. Then to, wow, this is nice, the ideal world, but it's wrong. Then to, I feel horrible disrupting this perfect picture, but we have to. And finally to, it's hard to say goodbye, but they will live on through all of us. Setting them free has given us the resolve to see things through to the end." Last song I want to talk about before moving on is actually not even in the game, or I should say it did not make it to the final version of the game. I was obsessed with this theme when they posted this clip on Twitter, and I anxiously waited for it to appear as I was playing through. We finally got to Solution 9, and I heard a different theme. I was still hopeful though, like, okay, maybe they repurposed it for another area. No, it's not here. I even waited until the spoiler embargo lifted to at Soken on Twitter and ask if we were still getting this song. He unfortunately did not see it, and that's okay. I'm also aware of the disclaimer that development is subject to change, but this is just me asking again, please, can we have that version of the song? It's too good. I am begging you. Anyway, the battle content is super fun. It's challenging enough to where I can't just zone out, but it's not too bad to the point where it made me want to turn the game off. It was the right amount of chaos that Barbaricia Extreme gave me when I finally understood all the mechanics. Dawntrail's mechanics, I don't feel like are that hard to pick up on, but I'm not sure if the reason I can comfortably say that at this point is because I finally feel like I'm somewhat good at the game. There was a lot of talk about content being too hard on launch, and I empathize with those people, I do, but I cannot stand behind the notion of asking the devs to make things easier. The content in this expansion allowed me to still have fun when I failed, where before, especially during Shadowbringers, I was super hard on myself. I still am, to be honest, but I'm working on that. Learning is fun. Wiping to content multiple times until you understand it is okay. Though it does suck when you get a stinker of a person in your party. I'm looking at you, random black mage who said we didn't deserve to clear Arcadian M2 normal because we used healer LB3 on the first day of the content being up. Okay. But if you can look beyond that and give things some time and effort, you will learn and improve. I feel like Endwalker really helped me improve as a player, so coming into Dawntrail felt like the right amount of increase in difficulty. And don't get me wrong, there are still some mechanics I don't understand and mess up, but that's okay. The amount of times my friends and I have panic screamed at each other regarding a spread or AoE mechanic before bursting into laughter because we died in the goofiest way possible, those are memories that I will cherish forever. And I hope everyone can find that group of people who you can fail with and still feel like you're winning. I definitely feel like our Warrior of Light has found that group with this great new cast of characters. This is going to be a little bit of a speed run with my quick thoughts, but I won't be mentioning every single character. So, Wuklamont. I loved being her travel companion, and there was never a moment where I got tired of being around her. Zorolja is a very interesting character, and I enjoyed his role as a villain for the most part. Kona, he's the best. Like, he's caring, knowledgeable, supportive, committed to growing as a person despite his struggles. What a guy. Chef's kiss. Aaronville. I was so happy he was here because learning more about him has been super cool. It was also nice that I was finally not the only melanated person in the group, but I digress. Galul Jaja, a goat. Rest in peace, king. Sphene. Interesting. Bakul Jaja. Surprising. I didn't like him for the majority of the time, but damn, that cutscene made me cry. Real tears. Wook Evu. A delight. I want him to work on his people-pleasing tendencies, but a delight regardless. He'll get there. Mablu. Really enjoyed her story with finding her own and finding out what her dream was. Namika. Endearing. Oh my gosh. Love her. Kafkiwa. Great, but I have many thoughts. Otis. Another goat. Shale. So cool. Golulja. That is my nephew, and I will do anything to ensure his happiness. The train crew. Actual tears. Shout out young Shenza McCartney. And the list goes on. There weren't any characters that I truly disliked aside from Sadelja and then Bakul Jaja and Sphene for the majority of the time. Lastly, I'd like to talk a bit about the new jobs, or job since I'm focusing on Pictomancer. Viper is cool and I played it a little bit, but melees really aren't my vibe in the long term. Pictomancer has been so fun. It was actually kind of weird because I had changed my name to Aurora Muse after feeling like I needed something new for the person that I was growing into. And then they showed off the kit containing moves like Living Muse and Starry Muse, and I was like, oh, this is fate. Before Dawntrail, I was a Summoner main, and I don't completely dislike New Summoner, but I have many thoughts that will definitely come in a video in the future. Either way, I played both for the Rite of Succession arc before switching mostly to Picto for the rest of the base game to present day. I've been quietly observing people complain about how powerful it was, and while it was definitely a perk, I was driven towards it more for the aesthetics and identity. I'm now realizing that not everybody operates like that, but it's okay. I admit the damage was a bit much on launch, being able to steal aggro from tanks and all that, but even after it was eventually adjusted, people still complained. Call me biased, but God forbid the new casting job temporarily pulls on the wig of Black Mage, a job that's been the dominating force since the beginning of the game's existence. I understand balance and Black Mage being a hard job and all of that, but I really didn't think it was that serious. Picto will probably continue to get nerfed. Everything will be okay. Alright, so now we're going to get into some of my dislikes slash gripes with Dawntrail. 1. Most of the section will have to do with specific story points as I've enjoyed almost everything else from the expansion. Starting off, I wish we got more background on the family dynamic of Galul Jaja and his children. I feel like Zoralja was a formidable villain despite the lack in context of his backstory, and I do feel as though there was enough present to plug in the blank spots. However, I do feel like maybe even a few flashbacks would have helped. Wuklamat, she has a text box remarking that everything was fine before the rite of succession, and if I can find that screenshot, then I will put it here. But I don't know if that's her naivete as the youngest sibling, or that genuinely may have been the case. But if so, that makes the switch up even more jarring. There's a possibility that we could get a short story regarding him, but I feel like it's way too long after the fact, as it would have been best delivered in the MSQ. I have very complicated thoughts about Zoralja and his story that I may want to speak on in the future. Next is probably like my main largest dislike of Dawntrail. Genuinely, what was the point of the Scions being here? I feel like the dev team was fearful of having like a new adventure without them, but I feel like the Scions will be pit against each other was straight up like false advertisement. There was hardly even a rivalry aside from Thancred and Urianger crashing a wall down on us in that dungeon. And every other time we saw them, it was like business as usual. Like, hey, sup, sup, you know? Like, it was nice having them there, of course, but if I had to pick on who should have come, Cryo, obviously, and Graha, because he's been dying to go on another adventure with us. The twins are an honorable mention because I kind of feel like they could have stayed back as well. I know why they came, but I have little to no attachment to this plotline of them wanting to continue to help Garlemald. Like, you guys have done enough. Let them rebuild and find their own new path, you know? Not to mention, like, our party was way too big. I think Team Wook Lamont should have been us, Aaronville, Cryo, and Graha. The twins, alternatively, could have been requested by Kona, since they are also fellow Studium alumni who are closer to his age range. Don't get me wrong, I love the scene where Urianger and Thancred are giving Kona advice about wanting to, be a bit more extroverted and relate to people and whatnot, because it's a very heartwarming scene. But I feel as though the twins could have delivered an equally moving dialogue for Kona. Now, once the Shard shenanigans started going on in the second act, that's when they should have brought in Thancred, Urianger, and Y'shtola, of course. I feel as though Estinian was also underutilized. Him coincidentally being in Terral at the same time as us is honestly great, but I feel like they could have played more into the random cameos. The monster that we see him fighting in the opening is an actual fate in Kazumaoka. Imagine how funny it'd be if there was like an NPC there fighting named Familiar Looking Dragoon, and when the fate finishes, he says like, "Thanks, stranger," or something. Alternatively, if they didn't want his appearance to be random, Zoralja was a little too prideful for this, but imagine if he requested Estinian's help due to his reputation as the Azure Dragoon, and Estinian eventually ends up ditching him because he realizes that he's beyond helping. I also feel like this could have been an interesting dynamic with Estinian attempting to advise him on being consumed by inner turmoil as Cryo sensed via her echo. And I don't want to talk too much on this, but I feel like we're starting to feel the repercussions of the Final Fantasy XIV dev team trying to add more solo player friendly features, but I don't know if I have enough time to flesh it out. I also might touch on that again in the future. A lot of ideas popping out from this video. But yeah, next point. Erenville was kind of done dirty by the story. Like, when we got to Shaloni, I was super excited to go on an adventure with him as he was starting to open up more and like be more comfortable around us. The cowboy shenanigans were fun, but I wish we actually got to see Yasolani with him before the dome appeared. I think the impact of the event would have hit even harder with us visiting before and after the dome appeared, because it would have been like we were just here, you know? They still could have kept up the mystery with his mom by having her be off on an adventure while we visit. I could also be a little bitter because I really would have liked to see what Yasalani looked like before the Heritage Found fusion, but yeah, I wish his character was handled a little differently. I also feel like the Warrior of Light has a few out of character moments. That might not be the right term, but that's what I'm going to refer to it as, and I'll be speaking on two specific instances, with the first being the kidnapping. Why were there so many moments during the Rite of Succession where we allowed folks to be by themselves? Especially after it's been established that people were not playing fair? The buddy system is 101. Why did we or someone else not go with her? Well, we know why, because of the epic moment that comes later with Kona, but there were other instances where I was literally on edge about someone watching us or thinking somebody else was gonna get nabbed. The second instance concerns the physical range job quest line, where the villain is literally like 8 feet in front of us discussing his evil plan, and our Warrior of Light does not even emote in response. I understand that these are quests where we're playing more of a supporting role rather than the main hero, but in similar situations in the past, we at least flash like a skeptical look or tilt our head or something, and I was very surprised to see nothing happened. I guess the vacation must have had us drop our guard all the way down or something, I don't know. And speaking of the job quests, I haven't done them all, but I was not a big fan of them. I'm no enemy of whimsy and silly. In fact, I'm a huge fan of it. But some of these people, like these villains, were genuinely frustrating to deal with. The magic ranged quest line would have been excruciating if not for the main NPC that we were helping. I was talking to some of my friends, and apparently the magic one is the worst one from their experience, so go figure. I appreciate the angle that not all situations can be solved by immediately throwing hands, but that guy was the worst character I experienced in Dawntrail. I have yet to finish all the other quest lines, but I have made decent progress with the healer and physical ranged ones, which thankfully don't have as annoying, frustrating villains, but the ones in the healer quest were also getting up there in terms of me just wanting to smack them and be done with it. Let's just say I'm in no rush to get back to these quest lines if I'm being completely honest. Okay, next is another biggie. Watching Galul Jaja die and not doing anything, not intervening, just blank stares. I don't care if he told us not to. Once Zoralja revived, all previous rules of that fight were off. Like, he literally cheated death. It was like watching Ahewan and Endwalker die without even attempting to do anything all over again. I know we were running towards him, but like, throw something. Every job has at least one ranged attack. Like, I hate that scene so much. It makes me so mad to this day, and so did this one. We literally just stood there and watched him die. It would have been nice to at least try to intervene, even if he still ended up dying, but alas, the plot. Traumatizing children in order to foster their growth. Whatever. They're not actually children, but you know what I mean. They're his children. And last gripe. This may be a hot take, but I almost wish Alexandria appeared like at the end of the base game. And I say this because I was a little underwhelmed by the role of the Toral Vijral. I guess they didn't want to do a repeat of A Realm Reborn with being so primal focused, but I feel like I needed a little more. Like, the quests leading up to the Valley Armanda fight were a little underwhelming. Aaronville's gadget was adorable, but I guess maybe a cutscene of actually seeing Valley Armanda like in the sky or like dropping one of those fireballs would have been cool. Overall, I believe we've seen 3 Toral Vijral by now, but I guess the threat for me just fell a little flat. I originally wanted to include some of my thoughts on the patches in this video, but this script is getting longer than I intended, so if there is one thing I will mention regarding them though, it definitely seems like the dev team tried to make an effort to address some of the Wook Lamont complaints in 7.2, by sending her off to talk to someone else during most of the cutscenes, and people still aren't happy. Not to mention, it felt extremely unnatural having her constantly be interrupted and then her announcing that she's stepping away and then coming back after the conversation had already been had. Compare that to if she was, just there the whole time, naturally, maybe contributing a line or two. Like, look, if you don't like her, fine. But the way some people act like being a little annoying, which is subjective, and naive is the biggest crime for a character to commit in an act of fiction is wild to me. Add on the general hate of Dawntrail in almost every space, from YouTube videos to Discord servers. I was sitting there like, damn, did anybody actually enjoy Dawntrail? I know I did. I know my friends did. And I know there are other people out there who did as well, which is what motivated me to sit down and make this video. Now, this is not me saying that people cannot critique the game, of course. However, when the general message being spread is Dawntrail sucks, it made me unsub, I feel like it's only fair to also add some light to the full picture. It does suck that the seeming majority do not like Dawntrail. However, it is definitely not as bad as people are making it seem. I feel like a lot of people get caught up in calling something bad just because they themselves didn't like it. But hey, at the end of the day, people are allowed to feel how they feel. Aside from the bigotry that arose around Woklamon's voice actress, that was disgusting, and I'm glad Yoshi P came out to address that. On the other hand, though, in the current latest wave of negativity for Dawntrail, apparently people who simply express enjoyment for it are white knights. Like, can we please be so for real right now? I digress though. With 7.3 right around the corner, we will seemingly get the conclusion of the Dawntrail arc, and I'm honestly going to miss it. However, I'm excited for all the new existing plot threads that can be explored in the future, especially with shard travel becoming relevant again. I hope the team continues to take chances like they did with Dawntrail, broadening the world of Final Fantasy XIV while respectfully calling upon influence from real-world cultures to tell a wide variety of stories. The path of a Zem extends ever further, and I can't wait to see where we go from here. If you enjoyed my yapping and or are interested in some of the topics I mentioned wanting to talk about in the future, please consider subscribing. Thank you for watching, and as I say to myself, I say to you, do what you gotta do to preserve you. Bye bye.